Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is always a favorite part of Environment Virginia Symposium, and that's presenting the Erchul Environmental Leadership Award. It's really a highlight and an honor. The award recognizes a Virginian who has made significant individual efforts to improve our environment. The award is named for VMI's Professor Ron A. Erchul, who was the founder of the Environment Virginia Symposium, and this award was established once he retired. Many of Virginia's distinguished environmentalists have received this award over the past 30 years. The award process involves members of Virginia's environmental community who nominate candidates, and those candidates are judged on the basis of their vision, expertise, commitment, integrity, communication skills, and their accomplishments. These nominations are then referred to our statewide conference program advisory committee, who then vote on the finalist. A panel of judges comprised of past award winners selects the winner of the award. So I'd like to thank all of those individuals who took their time to honor their colleagues through the recommendation process, and for our panel who actually selected the finalist. Now this year, sorry, got lost here a little bit. This year, again, we had a very talented group of environmental leaders who were nominated for the award. So that made the selection committee's task very tough. But this year, we're pleased to announce and present the 2021 Erchul Environmental Leadership Award to William Skip Stiles Jr., who is the Executive Director of Wetlands Watch. And now I'd like Mr. Darrell Glover, who was last year's recipient of this award, to please read the nomination for Mr. Stiles. Darrell, over to you.
Thank you, Colonel. William A. Stiles Jr., more commonly known as Skip, is Executive Director of Wetlands Watch, a statewide nonprofit environmental group based in Norfolk, Virginia. In this position, he has led local, regional, and statewide efforts to increase awareness and implementation of sea level rise adaptation work for over 13 years. Skip and his team have been working on sea level rise impacts since 2007. Wetlands Watch is helping to speed up local communities' ability to adapt to sea level rise and increased flooding. This work has established trusted relationships with the public and private sectors that have evolved into several collaborations, including partnering with localities and universities to provide assistance to vulnerable communities, building a widely used app for citizen tracking of flooding, and engaging the media on sea level rise and coastal issues. Working to bring the private sector into resource conservation work, helping develop a certification program of private landscape professionals in nature-based approaches to stormwater runoff reduction. Collaborating with state and local organizations to develop innovative land use models that can be used by Virginia communities to protect valuable resources as the sea rises. Educating citizens to press government to take sea level rise into account in regulatory and conservation decisions. In pioneering new approaches on how land conservation organizations can assist local governments in managing homeowner retreat from recurrently flooded properties in urban environments. Previously, Skip served as an independent consultant on issues related to science, the environment, and public policy for clients including the White House Office of Science Policy, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the National Academy of Sciences. Skip also served in a variety of senior staff positions during 22 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, including staff director of the House Agricultural Resource and Environment Subcommittee and legislative director for the Science Committee. He is a sought-after speaker and author of a number of publications on sea level rise and adaptation. He served on the Virginia Climate Commission in 2008 and teaches a class at Old Dominion University. He lives in Norfolk, Virginia, and is a graduate of the College of William and Mary. Congratulations, Skip.
I'd like everybody to give Skip a high five for a great effort, a great career in the environmental world. So thank you, Daryl, for those great remarks. Skip, you'll receive the actual physical award in the mail here shortly, but also, and perhaps more importantly in some respects, is that as part of this award, Virginia Military Institute donates $1,500 to the nonprofit environmental organization of the recipient's choice in their honor. And Skip chose Lafayette Wetlands Partnership. So I'm sure they appreciate that gift. So Skip, I'd like to turn it over to you for a few thoughts.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Turtle. Thank you, Daryl. And thank you for Environment Virginia in what has been a tough year, your 31st year. These meetings are always so valuable. They're a good neutral ground for people to come together and talk about the future of Virginia's environment. I value these meetings tremendously. And thanks VMI for having put them on for so many years. I'd also like to thank those who voted me into this pantheon. I'm really quite humbled by this award because when I look at the past award winners, I see people who've been heroes of mine, mentors, partners, colleagues, even a couple of co-conspirators. You know who you are. And it is quite an honor for me to receive this award. As often happens when something like this occurs, you think about the arc that's brought you to where you are. As I was thinking about this, I thought back to my time in elementary school spent in a pit blind on Mr. Whitehurst's farm on the west banks of the Back Bay. As my dad and I were hunting Canadian geese, and later he and I, freezing my tail off in a duck blind up on Chapawamsik Creek up near Quantico, waiting for first light so that we could begin hunting ducks. And my dad talking about his experience hunting in the Midwest when he was a kid and how the ducks disappeared during the Dust Bowl era because the prairie potholes dried up. And he talked about the value of wetlands and migratory waterfowl. And I think that was the first time I really had a great appreciation for wetlands. Later, we would take float trips down the Rappahannock and fish during the day and camp on the islands at night and eat the bass and perch that we caught during the day and talk about the environment. And then much later, fly fishing on the South Fork of the Shenandoah near where our family had a cabin on the river. So my appreciation goes way back. I think my activism began on the first Earth Day in 1971 at William and Mary, where we dug a catchment basin to keep the construction runoff from bringing sediment into Lake Matoka. Probably something that would get you arrested today, but this is the pre-Clean Water Act era, so we were able to do this. And a few years later, my activism was strengthened when in 1975, we saw the Keepone spill in the James River, which shut down its fisheries. That was quite a shock, one of the biggest environmental disasters in the country at the time. And then even much later, fly fishing on the Shenandoah, you had to be careful that you didn't drift too close to the Avtec plant in Front Royal because of the PCB spills there. So I also, at that time, began to understand the need to work hard to protect Virginia's environment for all of the benefits that it provided. My advocacy work stems from having graduated William and Mary and being out of work. I found a job as a receptionist at an organization called the Natural Resources Defense Council, which at the time was about a dozen people working out of a townhouse on N Street in Washington, D.C. Now, NRDC these days is a multinational organization with hundreds of employees, but at the time, it was just a few of the bright minds, the early bright minds of the modern environmental movement. And it was such an amazing experience to be able to sit there and watch them at work and watch them as they worked on some of the early environmental laws and the early environmental lawsuits that have shaped so much of today's environmental landscape. That job led me to being hired by a California congressman named George Brown, who, when I was hired, had just finished 5 days of hearings on climate change. His subcommittee and a subcommittee chaired by a young congressman from Tennessee named Al Gore had done the first climate change hearings in Congress. This was back in 75. And from those hearings came legislation to establish the first federal climate change research program. And I remember the signing ceremony with Jimmy Carter down at the White House. So for all of the 22 years that I worked on Capitol Hill, the talk in the break room around the coffee pot was about climate change as we discussed the latest reports coming out of this new climate change research program. But it was some years later that I dropped back into this issue when I was appointed to Governor Kane's Climate Commission. And I saw the impacts that were being discussed during the commission meetings. I saw how far this issue had progressed. I mean, we were discussing impacts that in the 1980s we had thought would occur at the end of the century, and they were happening now. And it was startling to see the pace at which this change was occurring. You know, brook trout streams in the mountains that were too warm for brook trout, and stumps 10 feet offshore at Bethel Beach in Matthews County, where there used to be a forest, but now there was just open water. So it was quite startling to see this going on. And I think it was at that point that Wetlands Watch turned to addressing climate change, because we realized that this was probably the major environmental issue for Virginia. It really, you know, not to diminish the Keepone spill, but it made the Keepone spill look rather small when I look around and see what our state environment is going to face in coming decades from climate change. It was also at that point that I discovered the cruel trick that Virginia's Constitution plays on anyone trying to put long-term environmental solutions in place. That trick being the one-term four-year governorship. So at the end of Governor Kane's term, we were all ready to move on climate change and had an agenda, but he was gone. And the next governor was not that interested in pushing ahead on those issues, and the subsequent governor had other priorities. So it really wasn't until last year, until 2020, with the Northam administration, that we started to make up for all of that lost time on climate change. And I have to credit the governor tremendously. His talk yesterday was very good and mentioned a lot of these issues. And also his Secretary of Natural Resources, Matt Strickler. They've pushed ahead very aggressively on this issue. The legislation that was enacted in 2020 really begins to set the table for Virginia to move ahead on this. But that legislation also exposes a tremendous need. And that need, two needs really. The first need is to bridge this work into the next administration and see if we can undo that constitutional cruel trick that we've had played on us. But the other thing is that it has exposed the need for additional resources at the state. You know, these state agencies have been plowing ahead, head down, just doing the work that they're tasked with doing. And now they're being told to fix the climate change issue. And we need to develop much more resources at these agencies and devote much more time and attention to this issue. So I think if there's any message to my brief talk here today, it's that we really do need to push ahead on climate change. We really do need to try to bridge this into the next administration and the one following and the one following, because it's going to take a lot of effort to fix this issue. So I want to again thank the rest of the folks in the Erchul pantheon, and also, I guess, it's not just me getting this award. When I was on the Hill and my boss asked me to be chief of staff, and suddenly I was given a staff of 25 people and offices on 2 coasts to manage and a budget of, I don't know, $750,000. And I stepped back and I said, how am I going to do this? And I did a self-assessment, and I said, well, I can either be smart or hire smart. And realizing my own limitations, I figured the latter course was the one that was easiest for me. And I've done the same thing with Wetlands Watch. So the award is not just for me; it's for the folks that we've pulled together. I've managed to. Our first hire, Shireen Hughes, was coming back to the workforce from raising a family. She'd been a consulting hydrogeologist and chairman of the James City County Planning Commission, and so we snapped her up. We stole Mary Carson Stiff, who was co-director of William and Mary's Coastal Policy Clinic. Roy Hoagland and I had a joint ownership of her for a while, but we managed to hire MC, as she's known. Mary Carson is doing a lot of our work right now on flood management and FEMA. We decided we needed a land use expert, so we hired Ross Weaver out of UVA's planning school. He took his undergrad at Tech, so he has a tough time on game days, but he's got a good base in Virginia's environment. And then decided we needed some climate change depth, so we hired Madison Teeter out of NC State's new master's program in climate change and public policy. So it's those folks that have really made the difference and helped Wetlands Watch make the difference. And so I owe the award as much to them as anyone else. So let me just finish by saying thank you again, and I'm so honored to be amongst this pantheon of environmental folks in Virginia. Thank you very much.
Skip, congratulations again for your many achievements, and thanks for your contributions today. Some great insights about going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we'll now break for lunch, and we'll see you all back at 12:30 for an interview with Secretaries Ring and Strickler, moderated by Joe Maroon, one of our first Erchul Award recipients. So we'll see you back here at 12:30. Thanks for your attendance. And again, thanks, Skip. Great job.
Thank you.